Welcome back to Bold TV. I'm David Grasso for the Millennial Minute. So the question of the day, is gaming good or bad for you? You've already heard from our guest, James Czerniawski. He's a tech and innovation analyst at Libertas Institute. And joining us is a friend of Bold and a podcast host, Christian Watson. So Christian, you said right off the top that, gaming can be good for you, but the games that people play, they're not really building mental capacity here.
Right, exactly. And so the biggest thing with gaming is, again, and I think to a certain extent James is right, the players do matter, but what they're giving, what they're getting, what they're playing matters even more. So yeah, you can build friends and everything, but in what context? I remember when I was, 14, 15, I was on Steam, a gaming thing, playing Modern Warfare 2 with people or playing CSGO, which is another shoot 'em up game. And I built friends, but they were like teammates. They were helping me kill people and everything. And it took me entirely away from the reality of my life. I mean, there were times where I would rather game on CSGO than actually go ahead and do homework or whatever. Now, of course, there can be people who can do both, obviously. But the point is what is in front of our face, is it going to edify us and help us get knowledge, or is it just going to do something incredibly rote and just have us do something over and over again? And that's what games do. They typically are very pattern-like.
Yeah, James, you had an interesting take on this, which was we don't actually talk to real gamers. So I want to know, James, number one, are you a gamer? And number two, for gamers, what are some of the benefits that maybe parents and friends and family members might not be thinking about over the long term?
To answer your first question, yeah, I am a gamer. Actually, at one point in time, I did it professionally for a little bit. As a matter of fact, I was a personality for one game at one point or another for the work I was doing. So there's a lot of great things that can come out of video games that you don't realize until you actually get more invested in it in some ways, right? And it's really important that we talk to gamers because they have a unique perspective on this. Over 40% of gamers that do it these days is in part because they want to make connections with other people. And we cannot go and overlook that fact. Now, sure, can games be addicting? Can games cause distractions? Absolutely. But go and tell me something in life that doesn't do that, right? We have alcohol, we have movies, and part of the reason that video games are going towards these kinds of topics that Christian highlights is because that's what people want. We go to the movies to see Lord of the Rings. We go to the movies to see Taken with Liam Neeson. We want that thrill, that adrenaline rush. So it's not necessarily surprising that video games go and copy this as well, right? And then when it's all said and done, even in those games, there still are lessons to be taken out. So in Assassin's Creed or CSGO, you're thinking about strategy and how to solve this particular puzzle of how do you win and get the objective complete. In Assassin's Creed, they have puzzles that you have to solve, and how do you go and get to the magical relics? And you even learn tidbits of history as well along the way. So it's not just as black and white as it's being presented sometimes.
So Christian, this is interesting. So James says, gaming's like anything else, right? Alcohol is bad for you, but it does make dating a little less awkward, right? And, food is good, but too much of it, leads to health problems. So should gaming be treated like everything else, everything in moderation?
Well, I think that it's a good principle to apply, that you should be moderate if you're going to play games. But I think what makes gaming distinctively unique from all those other things that James mentions is the fact that immersion, especially with the advent of virtual reality, it's all about getting immersed into the world. And whenever you're immersed into a world or into a story that you're drawn into by the game developers, you are naturally going to get distracted. I'm not sure if it's very valuable for us to weigh, okay, is alcohol more distracting? Is this more distracting? The topic is gaming, and gaming is evidently distracting when immersion becomes a thing, and when what you're being immersed into, again, is not edifying you in the real world. If it's like a strategy game or so, that can edify you. That can teach you how to solve problems and all kind of complex. But if you're just on Grand Theft Auto robbing people, shooting in cars, I'm not concerned about you going out and do that in real life. I'm concerned about you not getting any edification, any sort of knowledge, any sort of enlightenment from that. So in that sense, it is a distraction from what we should be doing. We should be seeking out knowledge to make our lives better every day. And in a lot of games, in the current mass culture of games, that's not what's going on.
So James, I've read some studies that gamers have brains that are differently wired, right? And it might help them succeed in the digital economy. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Video gamers tend to actually be a lot more creative than an average person. So it's not surprising that a lot of gamers that typically are more popular are also very skilled in something else. A lot of them tend to at least play an instrument. Some of them are very good at doing some other kind of creative activity. So it's actually linked to people that have much more creative side of their brain active more so than their that other side of the brain where they're actually more critical in their thinking, right? So it actually lets them really tap into something interesting here. And it's also worthwhile to note that this form of communication with people that gaming enables is really important to an underserved community, which is people with disabilities. There are 46 million people in the world right now that are with disabilities that do play games, and they get access to being able to be a part of something bigger than themselves that they might not be able to do in a normal setting. So this is actually a really good avenue to do that. And that actually might be a much needed distraction in a positive sense. So let's not overlook that either.
So, okay, so let's agree that, in moderation, everything's great. So let's decide before we leave here, and we're almost out of time, how much gaming is too much gaming? Christian, how much is too much?
It's going to depend. If you're a professional gamer and you do esports and you're making millions of dollars a year or thousands of dollars a month, then I guess you need to do a lot of gaming. If you're just a hobbyist who's just doing it for fun, I think you need to cut your time a little bit limit, like maybe like an hour a day, 2 hours a day. Just don't become addicted to it, essentially.
James, what do you think?
I think Christian actually had a pretty fair point. More often than not, the studies say that about 6-7 hours a week is what most people end up spending playing games. I think that's more than sufficient. If you're going more than that, it's probably because you're a real fan of it.
Well, listen, guys, this was a great debate, and I really appreciate both of your input, and we'll have you back soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Be sure to follow @BoldTV on most social media platforms or wherever you come to get our content, as well as www.genbiz.com and boldtv.org. Until next time, I'm David Grasso. Thank you for being here.